Howdy y'all, welcome back to the Black Sheep Meadow. This week we're going to discuss how we irrigate our main garden. Our main garden, typically in any given year, will have up to 25 150 foot rows of whatever variety we decide to plant. On this scale, we start to get into some water conservation issues. So I found the best method for irrigating large scale is to just do a drip tape system. I get moisture exactly where I need it at the plant. And it's not broadcast very wide for evaporation. So let's look in to see how we do this. So for our drip tape, as we place it on a row of whatever we've planted, I've chose to use, they sell this in various sizes. This is a 5/8 drip tape with 4-inch spacing. So every 4 inches on this tape, I don't know if the camera can get it right there, but every 4 inches you can see a little slit with, it's basically got like a felt behind it. And this will slowly disperse water to the plant. You can buy various varieties of this. I think the most common is going to be a 5/8, but you can change your spacing and the flow rate. This is, like I said, a 4-inch, and I think they make it up to every 12 inches there will be a drip hole. This should be a 0.17 gallon per hour per orifice on this tape. Alright, so for our main feeder line, every one of our drip lines is going to attach to this main feeder line. This is actually just a 1/2-inch tube. This was purchased at Home Depot. It wasn't necessarily specific for Drip Works or Drip Depot, anything like that. But this is the main feed, and it's going to come from our valving and our pressure regulator on the main hub here. Alright, this is our main hub. This is an orbit system I purchased at Home Depot. All of these fittings here can be purchased at Home Depot or Lowe's. We basically have a 1-inch water line coming in from our water well to this hub. I currently have 5 solenoids or 5 valves on this, so I can run 5 main lines for our drip tape. And today we're going to be adding an extra. You can see I've got a hodgepodge of electrical wiring here. Orbit makes these fancy grease fittings, or capsules for the electrical connections. I guarantee you within 1 season, if the electrical connections are not protected, they will corrode and you will have on-off issues with the valve. Alright, so the drip tape actually works on, at best, it works under 15 psi. Our water well supplies us with, actually our water well turns on at the minimum pressure of 40 psi and turns off as high as 60. It's what they would call a 40-60 switch on a water well system. If you're on city water or something of that nature, a public water system, it's going to be pretty close to around the 60 psi. Everything's going to have a little variances here and there. So for our drip tape to actually work, if we applied 60 psi to the drip tape, it would literally blow it to pieces. So we have to put a pressure regulator after the valve. The valve is designed to work at normal water pressure. This gray piece inside of here is a pressure regulator. We're going to drop our 60 psi water down to 15. Alright, some helpful tidbits on as far as our system being so remote from where the actual well is. I highly recommend shut-off valves in various places. Obviously you might not need one in the middle, but it's been very helpful to have a main shut-off valve here at the actual garden itself versus also one at the water well where I can turn it off however, whenever I need it. Let's get this valve installed. These manifold lines from Orbit, they'll allow, I think they actually make a couple, maybe even up to 5. This is 2 sets of 3. You can see where they're conjoined here in the middle. A little tip or a tidbit to help these things live longer than 1 season is every single year they take them off and take them inside. None of this valving or none of these manifold lines or none of these fittings are going to withstand freezing temperatures where the ice freezes and busts the pipes open. So every single year, take them off. I got them where I can disconnect them. We tried a box to cover them up, still didn't work. We were prolonged freezes for too long here in Central Texas. So I just made it a point every single year, all this stuff quick disconnects, take it off, take it inside. So let's get our new valve on. Alright, let's get this. These valves are directional. As you can see, there's a flow direction on each fitting. So obviously you want the flow coming from your manifold line to your drip tape. There we go. Let's get something to support this up. and tight is generally sufficient. I like to go back and give just a snug more right there. All right, for our electrical connection, we have a 7-wire line coming from our timer. Our timer's back actually at a power source further up by the house. But the 7-wire will get you 6 different valves or solenoids to operate at one time. Basically, every solenoid has its own power, and then they all share a common ground. On the wiring, you can see here, we're just going to twist the two together. I stripped it off where we got bare copper, and that's probably a stainless wire. But I'm going to twist these two together like this, and then we're going to just wire nut over the top of it. Now, to make this a weatherproof or waterproof connection, we have this little vial of grease, and you just shove this right on in there like so, just like that, all the way down to the bottom. And this is going to come over and snap just like so. So now we have our electrical connection is embedded in that grease, and we don't have to worry about moisture corroding the connection. We're going to do the same thing with the ground. Alright, so now we're going to work on one of our main distribution lines. Like I said, this is just a 1/2-inch hard plastic. I picked this up at a local Home Depot. We're going to push it, this piece on the end of our valve. This is just a swivel connector. And this is designed to where I can just shove the plastic tubing, get this out of my hand, where I can just shove the plastic tubing in the end of this and it holds on to it. Once again, this is a pressure regulator. We're taking our 60 psi water pressure down to 15, and through this connector will get us to our hard plastic where we can start teeing off our drip tape off of this. On the opposite end of our distribution line, we just got a plug or a block off, so we're just going to cap it off and we're going to run it out. I'm going to say these probably go in 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch before they bottom out. Let's get this strung out. All right, at the end of our distribution line, I took some just really stiff wire and made some hoops out of it for a tie down. Anytime the electronic valving turns on and the water starts to flow, we'll actually make this line jump, and it'll actually work its way all over the garden. You don't want that, so use a wire tie, shove it down in the ground. Alright, so now we're ready to install our drip tape into our main supply line. The drip tape I actually got from Drip Depot. I discussed before as far as the perforations in the tape are every 4 inches on this particular style. This is a 5/8 tape. When we go to puncture, we're actually going to puncture a hole in our main line to tap this in. When we go to puncture, we want to make sure whatever row of plants that we're trying to irrigate is in line with this. This drip tape doesn't do very well with bending or anything. It'll kink really bad. So if we need to keep in mind that we're going to put this drip tape, attach it to the main trunk with whatever line we're trying to irrigate. All right, so on our drip tape, we're going to use these fittings are all from Drip Depot. The drip tape 5/8 tape. This is a 5/8 fitting. We're going to shove this. You can see the tape goes just over the barbs, and then this little green nut will come back and squeeze the tape over the barb fitting over the top of that. Now right about here is where our line for irrigation is for our plants going this way. This little tool, you can see it's got a little, we're going to actually puncture a hole in our main drip line, and we want it facing the direction of our drip tape. You see, not quite enough. Alright, so we got a hole for our drip tape, and the fitting is just going to puncture right into it, just like so. Let's get this drip tape stretched out. All right, so at the end of our drip tape, we're just doing a short stretch for green beans right here. But at the end of our drip tape, it's just as simple as cutting the tape. Once again, opening it up. Now on this end, instead of having a tap, we just got a plug. It works just the same way as a tap. It's got a barb fitting with jam nuts screws onto it. Just like so. And on this end, we can take another one of the stiff wire hoops and tie this down here as well. Let's go ahead and get our second line set up. Should get another tape. All right, so on this drip tape, we can keep the tape. You can see where our green beans are. They're coming up. We got a piece of grid stopping right here. The drip tape drips at a very slow rate. Remember, we have a notch or a perforation in the tape every 4 inches. So every foot of drip tape actually has, let's see, we're going to do 3 slots for every foot. When we start looking at a 150-foot garden times 25 rows, especially in the springtime or early summer whenever we're irrigating the heaviest, just think about how many gallons of water per minute that we're using. And remember, our well pump can only sustain 10 gallons per minute at 40 psi. So start doing the math on how much irrigation you're doing. Make sure you don't overcome your water inlet to your house or whatever your well can produce. Let's look at some logistics on the main distribution center. All right, so back on our main distribution hub, just simple math, it's going to vary a little bit for each scenario, especially the distance away you are from your primary water. We're about, like I said, about 225 feet here away from our main well. And I have found that these valves, for the drip tape that we're using, the 5/8 drip tape with a 4-inch spacing, about 550-foot rows per each solenoid or each valve is what they can handle. Once again, you're going to have to really watch your water pressure, make sure you're not having too much drop off that's going to affect your total volume. When it comes to timing on these, I can tell you throughout the year, I have changed the settings, how many minutes they're actually on. It just depends on how dry, how wet, how much wind. Water evaporation is a big thing. With just a very slight wind, I think it's something like 3/4 of an inch a day can evaporate off the soil. So some of the other things on this, I'm going to give y'all some tidbits. I went through a lot of headache with this, you know, probably 5 or 6 years worth of getting it right. Like I said, the freezing every single year. I'm going to show you if you want to get in close. All right, so if we get in close here, you can see all this manifold. I try and take it and put it inside every single year. There's quick connects on every end of this. So as you can see, it's just as simply as unscrewing it. There's a little O-ring sealing surface there. And then this whole manifold can go inside the barn. All right, some other helpful things that I have found over the years that, you know, when I first set this up, I'm not a master plumber by any means. I set this up to make it work. And boy, I mean, I ran into a lot of issues. First being the distance from our well that we are. Like I said, we're roughly over 200 feet. When we start irrigating at this level, we're running, I like to keep it, we've got the capability of 10 gallons per minute. I like to keep it below that. Maybe I'll try and set my system up where at max I'm using 7 gallons per minute. But at that, when these valves turn off, it's an immediate close. So we have the water weight of 225 feet of 1-inch pipe flowing at 7 gallons per minute coming to an immediate stop. And we ran into some hydraulic hammering issues with that. And essentially what that is all that water, as it's flowing, comes to an abrupt stop, and it just hammers and shocks the entire pipe. So I went out on a search and started looking for hydraulic hammer arresters, something to slow the impact of that water stopping. Everything that I found, even online, really wasn't large enough for this scale. If I did, there was a few things on there, but they were just ridiculously priced. So this is what I have found, and this saved all of our connections for quite some time. But this is essentially just a tube, a 1-inch tube on a 90, and whenever the valves turn off, the water is able to compress the air, and the air acts like a spring for the water. So it's really taken the shock off all the joints, made the valves last longer, etc. and so on. Something else I can say too, if you're going to set up this at any garden, it doesn't matter if it's a large garden or whatever, set you up an additional spout for a water hose. This has also come in very helpful over the time. Alright guys, one more thing on these valves. First off, each one of these valves at the solenoid, you can twist it to manually turn it on or off as needed. This is a function that I use quite often, simply because I like to restrict my water flow back, just use a bare minimum. But if I need a specific plant or something just needs a little more water, I can come over here, manually turn this on and get irrigation. Now the thing is, you have to turn it off yourself. You know, you don't have an electronic device back at the shed turning it off for you. So there's been maybe once or twice where I forget the water on. So second thing is these valves, something else that's really great about them is they're rebuildable. You can buy diaphragms for them. If the valve starts to hang, not come on or stick on, you can buy the diaphragms and rebuild it versus buying a new valve. So I've been really impressed with this particular setup. Like I said, it's taken me some time to perfect it, get it the way I want it, make it work for me. But this is what I found. This is what I found that worked and what didn't work. So if y'all got any questions, man, leave them down in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to go and you know, reference all your questions, get you an answer if I got it. If there's anything else, y'all got other topics that y'all want us to do, you know, leave them down in the comment section. We will do it. Go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell. We'll see y'all next week.